let's get started. Let's switch to the opening and move on. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Friday, 1 p.m. My name's Abe Duque. I am your streamer for the day here at 343 TV. 343 TV comes from 343 Labs. 343 Labs is a school. We have schools in New York, Berlin, and online. Come to our website and maybe check out our class schedule. Maybe you'll take a class with us. I had some difficulties coming on today. Every time it's something different. Today was the stream key was the problem. Couldn't get the streaming going, so I kind of started my starting soon page a little late. Started soon late. But anyway, we're here and we're happy to be here. We've been working on some music, we've been working on the four horsemen of the of music production, which were EQ, compression, reverb, and delay. And we got through EQ, we got through compression, and today we should deal with maybe more the reverb and delay. That's why today's title of the show is Space and Time. But anyway, let's move on and just start doing some stuff. Here's the session that we're working with today. Play it a little bit here. I had some other bass lines that I wrote in. I was fooling around earlier, kind of playing with some new bass lines. I guess I love bass lines, and because I always write new ones. So we have these other parts that we had before. Simple Sam says he forgot about the horseman. Okay, so some music to play with, but before we go to the music, I wanted to show you an update on what I've been, my kind of little side project here in this stream, which has been to grab this drum machine that is MIDI capable, meaning it has it's MIDI programmable, meaning I could use it as a controller. That's what I mean more than anything. And I've been using it to map it to the drum machine that I pulled in from Ableton here, this 909. It's really fun because I got all the levels. Now a little update on the things that I've done to it. So in the past, let me just get a little less going on here so we can just hear the things here. So in the past I had one fader for toms, but now I have mid and high toms set up here. Maybe I'll show you the overhead so you can see this a little better. So mid and high toms, kick, snare, mid, low, mid, high toms, rim shot, clap. All these are set up nicely now, but not only that, but I managed to set up tuning on the toms and decay in the toms. So shortening of a tom, lengthening of the tom. Same thing for the mid. So tuning there, and the high. tuning there. Remember, you're not hearing this machine. I'm just controlling it. I'm taking advantage that they're labeled, and it looks like I can work toms with these labels and just kind of mapping them to what goes on the rack. Rim shot with tuning. I have the tuning on the rim shot. This is new. And clap with tuning, which is new, and decay. So I got all these things mapped down. Like really, every button, every knob here is mapped to the actual rack. Hi-hats, tuning, and decay. So lengthening, shortening, and tuning of the sound. Pretty cool. Ride. Before I had the tuning going last week, but I didn't have the decay on it, so I could make shortening. Goes out of there. Get the kick drum. It's always lovely to be able to do that with a hi-hat. Not the hi-hat, the ride. To be able to take that tuning up and down. Okay, so pretty much one-to-one. And I noticed I didn't do anything with the cymbal yet. I should do something with the cymbal, but haven't done that yet. But no worries. I did notice though that there are some knobs here that I just ignored, like this compression knob. So this is meant on this drum machine, this TR8, there's a compressor built into it, and when you use the sounds from this drum machine and you have the kick drum going, you could add compression to it. Why don't we do that inside of Ableton so that we can create a mapping that will actually be working with this compression? So let's take this bass line out for now, and let's look at the kick drum. And I already dropped the convenient compressor in there, which is the glue compressor. I think that one will do as well. I can map it on my Casio calculator. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, it's pretty cool to have it all mapped. For nerds like me, it's really kind of something very interesting. But we have the glue compressor now, and what I guess I want to do is I want to be able to lower the threshold and add more compression to it. Now the settings that I've chosen are going to be very slow attack, so I don't really want to catch the transient. I don't want that punch to leave my kick drum at any point. I just want to maybe catch the rest of the body, so I'm going to make it a very slow attack, very fast release, low ratio, kind of like making it less about compression, more about just filling it into that compressing device. So want to take this threshold and map it to my compression knob. So let's do that. It's MIDI map mode. Sorry, we were already there. Get that threshold going, mapping it there. Now there's a problem. First of all, it's running backwards, so when I turn it up, it goes down. So we're going to go back in here and look for the threshold knob and invert these actually, so that up is down and down is up, and now it goes in the right direction. So lowering the threshold is when I turn the knob up, which is kind of, Ableton's fault for making this kind of a backward setup here, but okay, not bad. But the problem is that when I turn up the compression all the way, the volume goes down of the whole kick. So that's kind of like, okay, more compression but less kick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multi-map this controller to the makeup, so that the makeup, when I turn it up, well, why didn't it map? Hold on, here we go. When I turn it up, so when I apply compression, as I apply compression, the makeup will give it more gain. Now it's a little bit off because it's actually giving more gain than what I really need right now. I actually need less gain, so I'm going to limit that. So let's look at that makeup gain. The maximum I'm going to limit to 10 dB because the whole way is 20. I'm going to give it half the power. So let's see. When I turn that up now, yeah, see, that works. That kind of keeps it around the same level as I map that. So let's look at that under Ableton as well. So what I've done now is I've mapped the threshold and makeup to this one knob here. And when I bring it up, one goes one way, one goes the other way, and one goes halfway up and the other one goes full way. So it's very nice to be able to map in that way. And show you the mini map mode again. And here's the 10 dB versus the 20 that used to be there. And here on this top one, I had to invert it by changing the values and, you know, making the opposite happen. Let's go back. So this works. And so now this should give me some nice compression. You hear that compression going on there? Let's put really low, long decay, and compress that low one. See, that gives it a little more punch, that low end one. See, without that and the compression. Now I could increase the compression action. Maybe I will. Let's try 4 ratio. That's a lot more compression. I kind of don't even like it. I'm just gonna keep 2. This looks good to me. Okay, so now it's working. I got my tuning, I got my compression, which is kind of on the light side, but that's fine. I don't really want it to be over the top. I don't want to, you know, be radical with my changes. I just want to be able to design a pretty nice tight kick. Let's get some drums going in here. There we go. Let's bring that bass line back. I think it was this one. Tune everything how I like. Okay, so we got it going. So that's the update for that that drum machine mapping. I think right now I've got it pretty good. So I'm gonna save this set just so that you know, I can just work with that moving forward. And maybe I could save it and, you know, drop it in another project. You know, be curious to see if the mappings follow me. I should know that answer, whether the mappings are going to follow me or not. If I move, I think if I move the device itself, it might not. But if I just copy the whole track, it may into a new project, it may carry on with the mappings that I've set up. Okay, cool. So now let's go on to the topic of the day. So today's topic is, I guess we got to talk about delay and reverb. We talked a bit about delay last time. We had a question on delay, just to kind of, you know, let's look at a delay unit here. That's echo. You might want to look into that today as well. But just to recap on what delay is. So delay is being able to repeat your audio, you know, right after it plays, you know, and repetitive cycles, depending on what your settings are here. One thing that a lot of people don't know that I, you know, always have to kind of stress. It was funny. I had a group, a meeting, and Simple Sam was in there. It was a meeting this week with some very, very advanced Ableton users at our Ableton Dojo during our 343 Studio Ableton Dojo meeting this week. And we were working on some pretty advanced, fun stuff, very, very fun stuff. Maybe I'll show you if we have time today of some of the things we were working on. But the funny thing is that when the delay came up, and I asked everybody what these little buttons were, and nobody knew what these little buttons were about. Everybody knew kind of intuitively what these buttons were doing, but did not at all know, the real answer to it. And yeah, I explained it last week, and I'll explain it again. The real answer to what these buttons do is that they control the repeats in 16th notes. So this is left, this is right. You can sync them together where, both of them will be the same, or you could have them independently working left and right, which in this case, now I can repeat at 16th notes. Now, the fact that I had the ping pong on, that's going to make it so that, things are, let's get this going. Let's put this on the snare. So it's going left and right because of the fact that it's ping pong. But if I didn't have ping pong on, it would be a kind of mono delay. But if I switch 1 to 2, one will repeat at 16th notes, the other side will repeat at 8th notes. It's kind of like a ping pong, but the ping pong actually just staggers left and right. There's a nice filter here, which actually adds you could add modulation to it here if you wanted to. And as we discussed last week, also we have the possibility of taking the taps and making them go to time. So time based, which gives us interesting short repeats. With short repeats and very long feedback, you can get some very interesting numbers. Simple Sam was in that meeting this week, and now he's saying there were quarter notes. And then he realized that, no, we were talking about 16 notes. But back into this situation where we're just dealing with time, but you can get some very nice, gnarly sort of action with delay this way. So if you make it a little more than just very short like that, you can get what you call slapback delay. That's kind of more of a classic slapback. And so it is. So simple enough. The feedback controls how many times the repeats are going to happen. So if you have, longer feedback, the sound goes back into itself and just repeats and kind of self-pervasive and has to kind of deliver on more repeats, giving us a longer tail, basically. It's what happens. It gives us a longer tail. Okay, so that's delay. But let's look at now, let's look at something else. Let's look at reverb. So what is a reverb? So this is the one that we really haven't talked about. So reverb is, the idea behind reverb is getting a device that provides you the reflections that happen in a given space. So you walk into any room or any space, when you, let's say, speak inside that room or sing or scream inside that room or clap inside that room, the audio waves are going to come from that source and bounce off of every surface, whether it be hard walls or hard ceilings or soft walls or whatever it is. People, anything that's in that space will cause these reflections to happen, and diffusions will happen of those reflections at points depending on the material in the room. So every space that you've ever been in gives you a sort of acoustic signature based on how the reflections happen in the room. And the harder the surfaces are in the room, let's imagine like a gym or like a squash court or something like that, those reflections are going to be super hard and super fast and super clean, and you're going to get a lot of them. So you'll get a lot of what you might call reverb, like a kind of a tail to your, say, if you're speaking in there, it'd be like hello, and you hear like lots of stuff going on. For example, if you had the snare in there, let's get that snare playing in there, and I drop it into this reverb that I have here. So this is mimicking or trying to get that sound of of the snare hitting in a particular space, the waves bouncing off, and then creating this kind of soup that Ableton calls it a diffusion network. A lot of uh, you know developers call it a diffusion network. Um, and so what we're looking at right now is Ableton's algorithmic reverb, but that's not the only way to create reverb. Withdrawn saying I'm the man. Thank you. Hey, Rashane is here. Hey, Rashane, welcome. So we're talking about reverb. So and by the way, drop your questions in the chat. If you have any questions on reverb, drop them in the chat. I'd be happy to discuss them and field anything that you might want to shoot at me. But anyway, there are several ways of creating this. So we've been trying to create reverb with devices for a while now. The way that we've depended on making reverb happen in our recordings starts out with maybe just actually being in the right space. So actually going to the cathedral and recording your voice at the cathedral, or actually recording it at the theater, or actually recording it in the hall. And then of course your voice is going to want to have that, or not going to have that the reflections to happen in that space, and the mic will pick that up. So that's a no-brainer, right? But now we don't have access to something like this. How do we get that going? Well, before computers were around and digital technology, there were other ways of doing reverb. There were like, say, plate. Plate was actually a big metal plate that would reverberate or resonate with the sound kind of thrown at it, like you put a snare in front of it or sing in front of it, and you mic up or set up pickups on that plate and catch the reverberations or the resonance, the resonations that came from it, and that would have this kind of reverb feeling to it. Plate reverb is amazing, but it's also hard to set up. It's not the easiest thing to set up because you do need a plate. Some of these plates are huge, 600-pound plate, not easy to bring that into your apartment, right? But at least it's easier than actually going into a cathedral and getting some time to record yourself in there, right? Plate is really known and good for snares and vocals. Like snares and vocals work really well with plate, and digital reverbs now will mimic plate reverbs. But whenever you see the word plate, you have to understand that we're talking about a big metal plate, and it was originally done with an actual big metal plate that you'd bounce the sound off of, and the reverberations would happen and the resonations would happen, and you'd mic them or get a pickup on them and record them. Now, moving from that, there's another way of shake around. There are actually springs inside of a guitar amp that you might see. These are a way of creating reverb for guitar, and this was still today. You buy a guitar amp with spring reverb. There's a spring inside of it. The sound is fed through it, and as it goes through it, it resonates, and the resonation, it's mic'd up with an electromagnetic pickup, and we go with that and record that, and we're good. We have reverb. So this is how spring reverb would work. So spring reverb versus plate reverb sounds slightly, the same, maybe a bit different, but still all kind of cool, very cool stuff. Then we have we have spring, plate, and then and the actual space. And then finally, in the 80s, we get the algorithmic reverb, the digital reverb. Actually, this reverb here that we're looking at is an example of the algorithmic reverb. Ableton's algorithmic reverb uses math, and all algorithmic reverbs use math, all of them since the 80s, to kind of, create what happens or model what happens in a space. There's actually two algorithms in the algorithmic reverb going on. Most of the time, you'll refer to them as late and early, or early and late. And what that means is that one algorithm starts the job, the second algorithm finishes the job. So Ableton wants to be special, and they call their late the diffusion network. Um, every other company or creator has sticks to early and late reflections. So if I pulled in, say, Valhalla, let's drop in Valhalla in here. I think I have it here somewhere. Yeah, this is a vintage verb from Valhalla. You'll look and you'll see that there is early and late reflections here. That's what and you'll see that in Lexicon and any of the companies Lexicon was one of the earlier companies making digital reverb. But yeah, early and late. So what does this mean? Well, let's listen. Ableton gives us a little volume for early and late. So if I add to that snare reverb, you basically don't hear anything until, let's add the early reflections. This is the first part. And by the way, the pre-delay determines how late you're going to hear that early reflection. So I always wondered, what is pre-delay when I would see it on the reverb? And I think, how does it know the future? Pre-delay? That's weird. But what it is, it's just delaying the beginning of that first reflection that you hear, the first early reflection. So as you see, as I make it longer, that's just the pre-delay. That's it. That's all it is. Now, if I lower that and raise up the diffusion network, the diffusion network is that soup that you are familiar with, that kind of diffused sort of sound. So how does this do this? Before that, let me just kind of show you that with the early reflection. So together now, I'll get them about 50-50. Together now, early reflection and pre-delay. You hear how that starts late now because I have a very slow pre-delay, and then yields into the diffusion network. And actually there's a knob here called shape. This shape knob actually determines the shape of the crossfade between the early and the diffusion network, which is the late reflections in most other places. So pre-delay determines how soon the first reflection will happen, and these knobs here will determine the balance between early and late reflections. All right, what time is it? It's about halfway. So you're watching 343 TV. My name is Abe Duque. I am an instructor at 343 Labs. I wanted to just let you know that maybe if you like what you're seeing, you could hit the like button, because that helps me impress my friends. Please subscribe to our channel. Let me check what we have as far as subscriptions. We're 27.3. I think last week we were 27.1. So we're getting a couple of subscribers, a couple of hundred subscribers a week. That's awesome. That's amazing. That's exactly where I want to be at. Well, I'd like it to be a couple of thousand a week, a couple of 100,000 a week. That would be awesome. But thank you for subscribing. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, and maybe hit the notification bell and all that other stuff. But definitely try to give me a like here if you like what you're seeing. All right. So never use the pre-delay. Seems good to make a groove, says Simple Sam. Well, yeah. Well, pre-delay is going to help making that reverb kind of work for you. Adjusting pre-delay, for example, on vocals is a really big deal, because, it really kind of makes the feeling of how the vocals are being delivered, changes that quite a lot. All right. So, let's move on and let's look at how we could use it, for example, even in the snare. So a lot of the times when you work a reverb, you think about reverb and you kind of equate it to this long tail. Oh yeah, best reverb has a very long tail, because it's fun to do a snare bomb with it. Just have a regular snare going, and then suddenly, let me change the snappy on this. And then suddenly just drop it into that big snare reverb setup and get like a snare bomb going, right, or a kick bomb, and you could do dubbing with that, and that's great. And that happens because you have a long decay time, so that's great. I told you I wanted to explain to you how the diffusion network is actually created. It's actually using grains. It's granulation technology. So it makes a bunch of little samples of what's happening, and then kind of loops little samples of the audio, and makes them in different sizes. And if you crossfade the edges of the loops of that, it makes it so it's there. You can't tell where the beginning and where it ends it. So it's really just kind of the essence of the soup of the sound, and it just allowed to kind of carry off for as long as you want, really. In some cases, you can do infinity. Actually, you could do a freeze here on that. So if I wanted to make that carry, so let's put that in there, and I could turn this off now, and that granulation will keep on turning, and it will be, the edges will keep on crossfading into each other, and things won't it'll just be that. So Ableton does that so you can control that with density and scale knobs here. So the scale is the size of the granulation, so you could hear that the texture of the repeats changes when I change the scale, because I'm changing the size of the granulation. And with the density is, well, how many of those grains are there going to be? I think you might have to re-get this going in order for that to kind of reflect the right thing. But let's take that freeze off. But that is basically the idea behind density and scale, and how the diffusion network in Ableton and most other places called the late reflections are set up. They're just these grains going around. Anyone here have an opinion on the Eventide reverbs? I have a few on sale now. Oh, not Simple Sam. Simple Sam does not sell Eventide reverbs. There are a few on sale now. Interested in the Shimmer one, but it's much better than others. So the thing is about reverbs, and it's kind of cool and kind of sad at the same time, because not every reverb sounds the same. There's a lot of difference in what you get with reverbs. And not that even they're better or worse, it just has a different flavor to it. It's maybe akin to like the difference between different filters and different oscillators. These things do the job basically that they describe that they're going to do, but when the delivery, you could tell that there's a different feeling and texture to the sound. So what you end up having to do is collect a lot of reverbs. I probably have 20, 25 reverbs that I can access, including a few in Ableton, of course. And there's all the Max for Live reverbs, and then there's reverbs in that I have that like that Valhalla verb that you see there, and then the Pro R from Fab Filter, and then a bunch of like reverbs from the UAD stuff that I have, and not one sounds exactly the same than the other. So because of that, you do have to go out and grab a bunch of different ones, and Eventide makes great stuff. And a Shimmer reverb is a special type of reverb with modulation that really makes a very like, if you put a Shimmer reverb in a guitar, you'll know what I'm talking about. So yeah, you kind of should try them. I wouldn't be angry at you and tell you wasted your time and money by looking for more reverbs. So there's that. Simple Sam, hardware, Acid Bat. I don't know what we mean here, but with hardware. Okay, Acid Bat says, I have an Eventide Space and I love it long time. Yeah, hardware is great. I have a couple of old hardware reverbs. I have 3 outboard. I have one Lexicon LXP15. I used to have a LXP 1, or was it a 5? One of those is reverb. And I used to have and I have two DSP 126 128 and 256 from Digitech. And I also have some pedals. I have a very nice pedal from TC Helicon, which is, I forget what it's called, maybe the Hall of Fame or something like that. And I have maybe another pedal from Line 6, but maybe I have more, and that I'm forgetting about now. But yeah, all of these have their place in time and in my use. I will access them all at different times. So okay, so getting back to this, we're looking at density and scale for working with those grains, and then most reverbs, or a lot of reverbs, are going to include a way to EQ the signal. This one has it on the way in and on the way out. Why do that? Well, you do wanna really kind of curtail the frequencies that you're working with. Black hole is my most used reverb. Oh, I forgot about the black hole. I have like maybe another 5 reverbs in my modular setup. I'm looking at one right now. I'll show you the black hole. I think that's what you're talking about, Tadillas. The black hole. Let me see if I pull this out of my rack right now. Or I don't even have to pull it out. I could just kind of move the camera to show you what I'm talking about. Let's get that overhead. So I have a few of these around. Let me move this to this area here. So this reverb here. Well, this is a multi-effect unit, and it has nice reverb, this black hole. But I have like 2 or 3 of them, and then I have some other stuff. But anyway, back to the program. And let me know if that's the reverb that you're talking about, Tadillas, the black hole. But anyway, so we were talking about why they would have cutoff and high and low cuts and EQs basically set up on here. It's because you really want to kind of curtail the high and low frequencies and kind of mold the shape of the sound of the reverb. So if we go back to the snare and we play that on there, and we're able to take, say, just even the high end and kind of just tuck it in or get it out of the way, we can get more. And if we do the lows, we can really hone in on texture here. So it's very important. If your reverb doesn't have this, very important to add EQ or a filter to your reverb after it. So if, let's say you have a great sounding reverb, but you don't have a way to EQ it, and some of the, simpler reverbs won't have this going on. But this is great. You could hear all the different textures. So being able to do this is amazing. Matter of fact, and I've talked about this on the channel sometimes, about Abbey Road setup, this Abbey Road reverb setup. If you wonder what I'm talking about, Abbey Road is a studio in the UK that a lot of famous people recorded at, including the Beatles and so on. And they've had this setting, or they had this setting that they made famous for all their reverb setups, where they'd have filtering set up with a cut at 600 hertz and a cut at 6,000 hertz, leaving only anything that's between 6,000 and 600 hertz, and this would be for vocals. And this would provide that perfect sort of vocal reverb, because you didn't need too bright on the vocal reverb, and you didn't need all that bass, and just having that 6,000 or 600 to 6,000 range covered was perfect for what they were trying to do. So, okay. So now we understand that being able to EQ it is big. Of course, that if you could work this size knob. A lot of different reverbs will have this knob called something else, but it basically changes the texture of things. It's meant to go at what the size of the room is and how the grains would react in that room, but just turn them and listen to the differences so that you can understand your reverb better. Because this knob by itself on another reverb, it's going to sound so different. There's never really going to be a one-to-one on this that's going to match. Okay, so that's important. But then the decay time is also going to be important because we could do very long and very short with that. And with that, I want to give you an example of how I love to use reverb. So we now know the over-the-top obvious use of reverb. When it has a big long tail, we use it to make bombs and dubbing and create big, mysterious sound, immersed sounds that are drowning in reverb, which is nice. I mean, you could grab, any sound and put some reverb on it and make it sound, much more ominous, if you will. But one of my favorite uses of reverb is reverb that you can't hear or that you don't hear obviously or over the top. And that is in order to fill in and make it a lot more sort of, let's say, well, let me just show you what I mean. So on this snare, right, I'm going to add reverb, but I'm going to take the snare and make it have this reverb that you won't be able to perceive unless you knew that it's on there. Now watch what I mean. So I'll play it through there. And the first thing I'm going to do is, raise the dry wet loud enough so I can just hear the reverb alone, because I'm really just going for what the reverb is doing and what it's doing in my head. I'm just trying to get that going on. So I open up the decay time, the dry wet. Of course, I'm not going to keep it like that. But then I'm going to play with the size knob to get that texture that matches better what I'm kind of hearing in my head. And reverb, you really do have to hear it in your head before anything else. So that's not the texture that I want for this. That's okay. And that's more like it. I'm going to say that's what I want. But now here's what I'm going to do. Check it out. Now I'm going to bring this in and start to EQ it to kind of really make it match. Maybe raise the decay time so you can hear it a little better. You want it to hang around in order to catch it. And that's the reverb I want. Okay, so I curtailed the low and the high a bit, but now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to back off on the dry wet, definitely under 50%, maybe a lot less, and on the decay time. To a point where I'm barely hearing it. So now you hear it because you've been hearing it all along with me and know that it's there, but let's lower that to maybe 8%. And the reverb is there. It's doing its thing. It's strong and powerful. But if you hadn't been listening to this all along, you'd be, well, where's the reverb? Watch, I'm going to turn it off and you'll hear the difference. See that? That's a dry kind of snare. It sounds good, but it doesn't sound... This fills in the holes and kind of just makes it a little bigger, but in the same place that it stands. And this will tend to do, if you add the same reverb to all your parts, you can make them all kind of feel like they're in this little room together. So this snare doesn't have any reverb that you may think, but it really does. If you want to make it a little more obvious, you can. A little more decay. So now when you solo it, you really can hear it. But the point is, and I guess what I'm trying to get at to tell you is that you should be using reverb in a way that is imperceivable first. That should be your goal, to take only what you need from it in order to get the job done. So if I so let me take this same one and copy it, and I'm gonna delete it there. Not delete it, but I'm just gonna stop it there. I'm gonna put it on the whole group here. So hit a little paste here so that it's on the whole. And I'm going to back off a little more on this. I really don't want it to be that perceivable. In this case, it's going to serve as kind of a glue to my drum bus. I'm going to turn on some more parts. Let me turn off that bass line. And let's add some claps and rim. Let's back off a little more on the decay. And get some hi-hats going in there. So this thing is not obviously drowning in reverb at all, right? But if we were to go back and turn it off, see the difference? Back on. It just sounds lively. It just sounds alive. It doesn't scream, oh, look at all my reverb. Look how I'm drowning in this reverb. No, I've used this little bit of reverb here to glue all these parts together. They all feel like they're in the, and basically what it does is if you take like drum sounds that have been recorded dry, like most of your drum racks are going to be dry recorded drum sounds, right? You take these drum sounds that have been recorded dry and you make a beat with it, and you play the beat coming out of that, of that drum rack. It's going to sound cool, but it's going to sound, all of it is going to sound extremely dry. It's going to be extremely dry, and you need to, find a way to make it feel like they all belong together. And what makes a drum set sound like it belongs together? Well, when you record that drum set, you're recording it in a particular room, and that room has a reverb signature that every drum that's played inside of that room while you record it, has to pick up. So when recording a drum set in a good drum room, what you're going to get is all the reverberations from that drum room equally on all the parts, all the drum sounds. And this makes it feel like it's a drum set. This gives it this, glue that makes it like a drum set. And we're trying to do the same thing here. So by adding just a tiny bit, maybe, and decreasing the decay a little bit here, we're not trying to be obvious with it. Listen to that. And you'd think, oh yeah, it sounds cool. There's not much reverb on it at all. But then you take it off. See how dry it is? See the total difference? The dry and the slightly immersed whole reverb on everything. So a lot of times when you get a track that sounds very disjointed, because it's so dry, like all the drums in your production, and this doesn't work well for all types of genres. Like big time electronic music might not work with it, but when you're recording like a drum set and you want to make it feel like it's like a drum set, this totally works with it. So adding a little bit of room. Let's call this room, because it's basically what we're doing. We're making it feel like it's in a room, reflecting off of the surfaces, and the sound is picking up all together. This will glue your drum set together. Not only that, but you could do it beyond that. Like, so it was very customary, and this somehow people have backed off of this because of the same reason of electronic music needing to be so kind of so kind of individual in each sound. Each sound has all this individual treatment, right? But before electronic music was dominated like it dominates now, we were not so much in acoustic music, maybe guitar music or music that was recorded with microphones, right? So at this time, when you were mastering a track, a lot of the times a mastering engineer, one of the options that a mastering engineer would have to make it sound less disjointed, and somebody's talking about some glue and disjointed groove hale no. I don't know what that means. But anyway, adding a little bit of reverb to the whole mix, like the whole entire mix during the mastering process, was common. was common, because adding a little bit of reverb, and I'm talking about, remember, look, I'm at 7.1% with a very short decay time, and maybe even less than what I'm adding now. Adding just that little tiny bit of reverb to the whole mix would make the whole mix glue together and feel like it was all, like, especially if it's like acoustic music, like you're recording, drums and bass and guitar and piano and whatever. They're all meant to sound like they're a band, right? But they were individually recorded, and dry in a situation where they weren't recorded in a nice room. They were just recorded in a small setting, or maybe even recorded. You're trying to make your MIDI production sound like it was actually a production that would be recorded in a in a nice studio, a nice recording room. Well, adding a little bit of reverb, tiny little bit, to the whole master made all the sense in the world. Okay, so once again, show you the difference. So that's absolutely my number one way of dealing with reverb, or using reverb. So let's keep that on there for now. But then there's the other way, which is to actually make it so you could make bombs with it. So reverb to make dubbing happen. And this is great because I'm going to use some of these knobs on here to do that. So I'm going to map the sends on this kick for the reverb. I'm going to do this one because this is where the kick is. I'm going to do this one for the snare. And I'm going to do this one here for the toms. So the toms will have, and I'll do them equally so that all toms will go with one knob. So let's see how I can do that. A here, and A here will all be mapped to this one knob here. And then the rim shot will get some reverb there. And then see where did I put did I miss something here? So the rim, so I'm mapping stuff a little bit. Oh, I see what I did. Okay, I gotta erase the mappings. Hold on. So I got it right all up until the main toms, but I could do the toms individually. Actually, I'm just gonna do okay, I got the main toms there, then I got the main toms, then I got the rim, which is here. Then after the rim, I got the clap, which is here. All right, I'm going good now. Then I got the hats, which are here. Those can go into reverb. And then the final thing is going to be the ride. I'm going to use this one over here. So now I should be able to independently send with my little controller here reverb. Oh, I'm doing wrong ones. I'm here pulling on things that I shouldn't be. All right, let's just get these tuning knobs to the middle position. So, okay, it's these guys up here that I want to worry about. Okay, so got those. So let's say I want rim. That's cool. See, now I can do the kind of dubbing thing. Let's get a bass line going in here and some other music. And let's get some of this music going here. And let's do it to some other part. Let's see the snare. Yeah, that caught the snare, but that was a little bit kind of. Is that the snare? Let's see what happens to the kick. No, I did the kick. That's the kick. See, I mislabeled that one. Let's get that right. So let's the kick is going to be this one, and the snare is going to be this one. So this should work now. Yeah. We don't have to make it so bright. Kick, snare, toms. Take the toms out for now. Ride, clap. A little metallic sounding that. Let's get that. How about that? hi-hat. See, that's dub. Okay, cool. Doing all right. Got my compressor going here. I think I need a little more loudness on this kick so I could work my compressor nicely. Get a little closed hi-hat. Open hi-hat. Tune that right. Clap with a little bit of reverb. Duque and dub. This is Simple Sam. Yeah, this is working now. Let's bring up those toms. Let's get another couple of patterns going in here. Switch out. So, acid bad say TR8, but the TR8 is just the controller. It really is. All we're doing with the TR8 is using it as a controller to control everything in Ableton. I'm going to save that so that I don't lose that, and we can build on that for next time. So this drum machine is called the TR8, but all it really is a controller, and I could use any controller to do what I'm doing right now. I just think it's funny to use a drum machine that could do all this. If I just plug the output out of this drum machine, I can get that action going on from the TR8 itself. But I'm just trying to make it so that the TR8 can control the, because, thinking about it, I mean, theoretically I should be able to change the sounds now and make it work, but I think my mappings would get messed up if I did that. If I just switched out the sample in it. Maybe if I just switched out the sample, it might work, but we'll find out another time, because we're running out of time now. We're coming down to the end. So thanks again for joining me. Let's see if there's anything in the chat that I missed. You guys have been very chatty in there. TI-80 Mark says, I'm always using Valhalla Supermassive. I don't even know that one. Interesting. Todilla says, this Black Hole from Eventide, UV plate and vintage verb from Valhalla. So it's the Eventide Black Hole. It's not the Black Hole from Erica Sense that I had. Okay. Let's see what else. Simple Sam is always saying stuff. And very cool. So I guess you're watching 343 TV. My name is Abe Duque. I'm here every day at 1 p.m. No, every day. I wish I was here every day. Actually, I don't. But I'm here every Friday at 1 p.m. We stream Saturdays as well. John Selway will be doing his techno show, Techno Saturdays, tomorrow. We also do every other Tuesday with Tetro Talks. So tune in for John Selway show tomorrow, where he'll be talking everything techno. I'm sure it's a techno one because last week was in electro. So sometimes it's electro Saturdays, sometimes it's techno Saturdays. But either way, it's John Selway. So 1 p.m. tomorrow, John Selway. And don't forget to go to our website and kind of check out our class schedules. If you like what you've been seeing us do here on these streams, we can do this for you, and we can do this personally with you, and help you out and hold your hand and spoon feed you and all that to get you trained up and to what you want to learn about this stuff. And hit the like button if you like what you saw today. I would really love to be able to say, hey, look, they like me. They really like me. Anyway, thank you for joining us. I will see you again next week, and have a great week in the meantime. I guess I'll say goodbye now.